Thank you. Yeah, just to introduce myself, I've been a lecturer at Abertay for 27 years, quite a length of time. My degree's in mechanical engineering, so I've taught a lot of mechanical-ish things away back, kind of moved through networking, programming, now on ethical hacking. Probably the summary is I get bored every couple of years and want to kind of go do something else. Everybody knows me, I think, for being the programme tutor at Abertay for the ethical hacking degree. So swag and swing, what are they? Basically a couple of tools that I've created for using with classes in Abertay. First one, susceptible web application generator, swag, codename's swag. I was thinking damn vulnerable was a little bit overused in hacking, so I've moved it away from there. Second one, susceptible Windows network generator, swing. So the talk's basically all about what are they, why I created them, and where are they going. There's a hell of a lot of future work in these applications. Ethical hacking at Abertay, well, I always advertise ourselves as we're vocational. We're trying to aim at the job market, make things as real as we possibly can. However, teaching security testing, web application testing or infrastructure testing, it can be difficult. The traditional way that I've done it, and some of you who've been at Abertay before, and I recognise a few faces, will recognise this, that essentially what I do is I create some kind of target, whether it's web applications or a network, and hand it out, the same target to everyone. And what happens is students will collaborate, somebody will find a trick, somebody will find an administrative password, then they go to the pub and tell their mates, and it takes away a lot of the challenge. So it's pretty easy to do that, but it's much harder to make it challenging. And it's also tough to give students practice and feedback. A lot of my students want to be pen testers, so they want to test the network, find out what they should have found, and then try another one. So, lots of different testing. I also try and challenge security students in security as much as I possibly can. It brings more than just the technical skills, and I think Abertay is more about other things than just the technical skills. Things like exposure to methodologies, project management skills, experimentation skills. I think I've probably learnt more things by getting them wrong than getting them right the first time. So it's nice to give students the environment where they have to test things, they can break things and get it wrong, and then hopefully get it right. The other thing is think outside the box, and so many people have said to me, you can't teach think outside the box skills, and they may or may not be right, but you can certainly put students in the situation that they have to think outside the box to win. So that's really what I want to do. So looking at swag, this swag version 1, this was conceived last July in Corfu. I had 18 nights in Corfu. And I lay by the pool in the morning and I drank lots of alcohol in the afternoon. But in the meantime, when the sun was the hottest, I spent at least 2 hours every day writing this application. I'm not sure my partner was too enamoured of me going on holiday and working, but once a geek, always a geek. So, looking at web application security testing, and a lot of you will recognise these applications. Brilliant applications, Damn Vulnerable Web App, written by Ryan Dewhurst. Known for years, great application, Matility, BWAP, and also WebGoat. They're fantastic training applications, there's a lot of challenges in them, brilliant. However, they're not really realistic web applications, so you cannot perform a methodology against Damn Vulnerable Web App. That's not its design, it's not its function. So it's not vocational in any way, because someone getting a job at the end of this would be applying a methodology to a website, reporting the findings, so that's just not in there. Also, secondly, the solutions are out there. Students, like the rest of us, will take a shortcut. So if you can go online, find the solutions, then students will do that. And a lot of them would say, well, I would have found it anyway, but they're missing out the experimentation skills, the getting it wrong kind of skills that you learn. And also, once you've done DVWA, it's done. You can chuck it in the bin, basically. So here's the desired situation. I've got classes of 40, 50 students. I want an individual and real-life website as much as possible for each student, or several for each student. And I want them to form a full test using the methodology and then do the thing that they hate, the documentation at the end. Every student hates doing that, but tough. That's what it's all about. You must document in the real world. So I want realistic applications students can attack, and I want lots of them. And I want them to be vulnerable in different ways. I don't really want them to be tied down. When you're learning anything like this, if you get something that's tied down, it's really going to knock your confidence. You're not really learning very much. So I want them to be very vulnerable rather than under-vulnerable. So what I did on the balcony in Corfu was I Googled for applications. We'll try Apache, MySQL, PHP applications and see what's out there. And there's lots of websites, freestudentprojects.com, which I take it are student projects that you can download and submit as a coursework. Don't ever do that, because I was trying to think of a technical term for these applications, but I could only think of shite, because they're absolutely awful. They're terrible applications, full of bugs, full of flaws, and in many cases they're full of Trojans as well. So be incredibly careful of using any of these. And the documentation is just, they sell a document with it, many of them. No, don't do that. So anyway, I started downloading them, and in most of these applications that I've downloaded, I've had to fix the code. That's number one. I've had to make it work. Lots of the functionality wasn't there. I've also kind of turned them into other things. You see Hogwarts School, which I think is very relevant for this building. I feel like I feel like I need a magic wand in this building. It's a bit odd. But anyway, so these are applications to download and use. So we've got a school manager system. We've got a jeweler store in here, which I've turned into Rick Astley's jewellery store. Online career guidance. And I've also got a medical service specialist where I've promoted Rick Astley to a doctor. I've got a student information system, a clinic, a web file manager, and of course, no student can survive without pizza, so I thought I'd put in a pizza ordering system as well. So these are basically what I've termed the base applications, 8 of them. They're coded in different styles, which is great. So 8 different coding styles, most of them horrendous. Each of these applications has also got lots of different inherent vulnerabilities. Cross-site scripting, there's probably about 10 in each of them, which is fine. That's what we want, but still not enough. So I needed to do a little bit of scripting. So give me a good excuse to learn a bit of Python. So here's the very first version. Use this for student assessment. So you see it generates random websites for student assessments, but just go through each of the parts individually in here. You can see we've got a student, what's that, 6 9s and an 8. It's created a copy of the jewellery website for that student, copy of food website for that student. So it creates a copy of one of them at random, then injects random vulnerabilities into that student web app, and then all the injected vulnerabilities are logged for me. So when I'm marking, I can see what each student was facing, but also, as part of feedback, I can send them their grade and say, here's what you should have found. So a nice little bit of feedback for them. And I think feedback is really important in this case. Here's the current injected vulnerabilities. I have not injected cross-site scripting because there have been so many of them in there, pointless. Let's just leave it. But things like SQL injection, cross-site request forgery, a lot of these in there. Some that have been injected are true or false. So things like directory browsing is either there or it's not there. Some are randomly created from a list. So, for example, each of the applications has got an admin login as well as a standard user login. So for the admin login, I've created a password based on a dictionary text file. Some are random. So, for example, the SQL injection countermeasures, these are a very basic one, a lot more now. So it's going to pick one of these. You see that this one is essentially just filtering out 181 or select or union in there. So that's all done at random. Just a little bit of detail of how I've done this. It's really not rocket science. All I've done is gone through the PHP code in certain places and normalized it. So, for example, anytime there's a login, I've used $username and $password in the PHP, and then I've put an include file underneath. So the countermeasures to SQL injection there are from that file, and my script basically creates that file. So it's not really rocket science. There's also other places in the code where I put in tags, so my script will search through for the tags and replace the tags with whatever I want randomly. This was the feedback that was created for students. Pretty basic to begin with, I must admit. It's much better now. But you can see in here that we've got hidden source codes, messages, user enumerations possible. Admin password is service in this case. So you can see useful feedback for what the students should have found when they were going through it. So used it in term 1 for assessment. Worked reasonably well. Probably too many vulnerabilities, but I've got a lot of good feedback from the students in there, and I've kind of altered it a little bit now. But giving students a practice platform is not really fulfilling what I want to do here. I would like some kind of self-contained application where students can create things and instantly get feedback, and maybe a little bit of training in there as well. So Swag version 2, I'll give you a little demo of this in a minute. But very, very simple. Web interface allows the student to create a vulnerable web app with different types of vulnerabilities, then test it and get feedback on it. So I've had a horrendous day today. My laptop fried at 11 o'clock this morning. Thanks to Marion and Rory for the laptop. So let's hope that this works. So I've got this running. I've actually managed to get it running in a tiny core virtual machine. So the entire thing is around about 250 meg. So quite amazing. Let's go in here. Moment of truth. Right, so this is essentially it. You see, it allows you to create a random vulnerable web app for testing purposes. Pretty straightforward. If I create a new web app, and I've done it with a kind of base, I can say all vulnerabilities are there, no vulnerabilities present, or random vulnerabilities. So if I just do, let's say random vulnerabilities, but in here I want to make sure that I definitely have SQL injection in there. So I can make sure that these are definitely on, or I could have said no SQL injection. Okay? So I can do that, create the web app. That's the web app generated. There's a little bit of information at the bottom. You've been given a user account. HackLab is the username, password is HackLab. Your task is to test it. So you can go to the web app, and there we go. So that's that one. You can log in there and do a full test of it. Going back a bit, at the end, you can then go into the injections, and this is a list of everything that's been injected. Just to look at some of them. There's a cookie that can be reversed, and that's the way it's been created. Directory browsing's enabled. Go down a bit. SQL injection, there's the countermeasures used. There's a brute forceable admin password, which is not an easy one, but that's obviously in the dictionary that I've used. So nice and simple. Go back and create another one, all vulnerabilities, create web app. This is why I hope random kind of comes in. Oh dear. You just knew it was random, we're going to create the same one. So yeah, that's created another one. So it's a web file manager in there, can be used. And as I say, each point you can go back and see what was injected. So it basically means that the student can sit and practice and practice and practice and practice, and also individual vulnerabilities. So if someone wants to become an expert in SQL injection, then they could just create site after site with different countermeasures. Lots of things to do in this, 10 ton of things to do. The more I think about it, there are more things to do. Number one, act on the student reports that are about to come in, see what they've found and try and make it better. More base web apps. I've got about another 6 that I've downloaded that I could fit in fairly easily. High, medium, low. So to say, it's currently very, very vulnerable. More vulnerabilities. We're talking to a number of people at security, and they've suggested vulnerabilities that could be put in, so we'll put them in. Web server configuration vulnerabilities. There's no reason that I can't add in the environment as well. I've also got an honours project student, David, who's done a great job. Start of the year, I told him, this is what I'm going to do. Here's your possibilities. He disappeared, and I hadn't seen him for about 4 months, and he came back and he showed me all these things he's implemented. So there's lots of things in there, like password throttling and so many things. He's actually got a training system in there as well. So I will be incorporating his stuff into this as well before releasing it. Swing, kind of moving rapidly on to Swing. The same kind of thing, infrastructure pen testing classes. I give out a network which is all the same, all the students have got the same network, they collaborate. So how to make this more challenging? I had the idea, let's try and create a random network generator. Done it in PowerShell. PowerShell is absolutely fabulous. You go online, most of my code is joining together routines that I find online. It really is a copy and paste job. I feel like a student that has just gone online, copy and paste, put a couple of lines in between it. But there are routines for creating a domain controller, a simple routine. You just download and call it, so that's my code. I feel a bit embarrassed, but whatever. But this was the envisaged application, a different vulnerable network for every student, 2008 server and Windows 7. So I generally have 2 servers and 2 clients. It is a multi-stage PowerShell application, but the batch files in there, all they do is really control things. See what I mean in a minute. The reason it has to be multi-stage is because you know what Windows like. You try and install anything properly, then you must reboot your machine. So it's a bit of a pain, so it's had to be multi-stage. So essentially for the Windows 2008 server, 4 stages, stage 1, 2, 3 and 4. Stage 1, initialize values, and that's things like turns off the firewall and UAC, just to make sure the scripts run okay. Sets the IP address, and in Windows, if you ever set the machine name, then you must reboot. You've got no option, so that's stage 1. It then reboots and runs stage 2, sets it up as a domain controller. Stage 3 starts to do a bit more clever things like adding in users, and I'll explain it in a little bit more detail in a minute. It also adds in computers, DNS, installs some Windows services, as many as I can get away with without it asking me to reboot, and then installs some patches, reboots. Stage 4 installs some more Windows services, configures the services, and also installs some third-party software. So kind of go through each of these parts. And any file controls it all. So I've got an any file with everything in here. For example, the domain name, uadtarget.com. Also things like organisation details. And I've also got things like the departments for groups within the network, and things like usernames that have been randomly created, and also words that I'm going to use for passwords for creating for users. So adding in random users, see in here that it adds in random users. I've got minimum password length and maximum, but it adds in a percentage of users with dictionary words, passwords. So in here I've got 40%, that can be controlled. I've also got users with dictionary plus numbers, so 40% of the users have got dictionary plus numbers, and I've said 20% are going to have good passwords that are very, very random. It then creates each of the groups, so we've got human resources, legal, finance, engineering, sales, etc. And it says users who are in the admin group that have got good passwords. These are admin users with pretty much uncrackable passwords. And also 3 users in here that have been created that are in the administrator group, they've got crackable passwords. In here I've got, I think, it's 102. 102 users are created, and it dumps all this to a file so that I can take it away when I'm marking. Here's adding in the random users. You can see the kind of thing that's happened. That in here, the number 1, r.godino is created with a dictionary password. The next one's a dictionary password plus a number. Down here, we've got a very difficult password to crack. But also, we've got an admin with a bad password in here, m.lamp, whose password is in the dictionary. And that one's, there's an admin with a difficult password. So it just kind of goes through that, churns through that. It also adds in patches up to a random date or a specified date. So I can say, patch this server up to a year ago. Or I can say, do it randomly. And the way I did this was I used a third-party package, and it downloads all these patches as MSU files. And it's very nice. It means I can do this no restart. Because again, Windows, when you're doing a patch, let's restart. So the very last one restarts. Okay. Also installs Windows services using PowerShell. Incredibly easy to install Windows services. So you can see the kind of things that is installing: DHCP, TFTP, SMTP, just however many services I can put in there. At the end of it all, this is the kind of sample output that you see in the Windows 2008 server. That we've got all the groups are created in here, the OUs, HR and IT legal. A whole pile of computers in there that are dummy computers. If you look in each of the groups, we've got users that have been created in there. And also the administrators, you can see that there's a number of administrators being created in there as well. Configuring the services, what I've tried to do for each of the services, I've created one PowerShell file that sets up the service secure and one insecure. So for example, in there I've got DNS. This one allows a zone transfer, which is not good. So that's a vulnerable one. SNMP, we've got a public read-only in there as well. So there's two either side. My program, I can set to randomly select one of them or always make vulnerable. Depends on how we want to configure it. Adding third-party applications. I found this package called AppDeploy. It's quite often known in the internet as free AppDeploy. It's been around for years and years, but it still works really, really well. I've only got, I think I've got 2 FTP servers in here that my application uses. But it allows you to pre-snapshot a system. So you snapshot the system, and by that I mean services, registry, files. Kind of takes a snapshot of that. Then you install what you want, and it may be Apache web server with a website and all the configuration in there, and then you post-snapshot it, and it creates an MSF file of everything that you've done that changed. So I can set up, say, Apache server in 20 different vulnerable ways with a different MSF file for each of them, and then say at random, choose that one, or choose that one, or choose that one. So it's a brilliant little application. It's about 15 years old. I was quite shocked it still works, but it's a little bit slow, but hey, once it's created, it's created. Yeah, so my plan is really to create different categories in there. So every student will have an FTP server, every student will have SSH or an Apache web server, or different types of services in there. So entire procedure, a little bit complicated. I'm using the VM run command. It comes with VMware. The syntax is a little bit awkward, but once you crack the syntax, then it's actually incredibly easy to use. It allows you to run a VM, revert to snapshot. It allows you to create shared folders. It allows you to copy things over to the VM. It allows you to run things on the VM as well, from a kind of single command on your base operating system. So this is essentially what this create network script does. I've created 4 kind of bare bones operating system, VM server 1, bare bones, nothing done to it at all. So this is, I'm creating a snapshot called booted. So all the initial part of the batch file does is just boot up the 4 VMs, and they sit there all happy. Then copy everything over onto VM server 1 in a folder. Then I copy batch files onto each of the virtual machines and run all these batch files in each VM. And I'll explain why I need to do that in a minute. But this is my situation. I've got 2 servers, 2 clients, I've got Go running on them, and what Go does essentially, it sets the IP address. Now, if you set the IP address, then we can communicate with, all 4 of them can communicate with each other. And in this case, I'm using server 1 as a controller. Okay? So that's essentially what it does. We sit and wait, and then the first controller will go through my 4 stages of creating that domain controller with all the users, with all the services, etc., etc. Once it's finished, at the very end, it copies required files to the secondary controller and each of the clients, and then, because we've got fixed IP addresses, we can PSExec into them and say, now kick into action. And essentially what happens is the secondary controller will be set up, sets it up as a domain controller, so it does all that as well. The clients will join the domain, will log in as a certain user, and the same with client 2. So it's a reasonably complicated procedure, but fairly straightforward. 10 ton of future work in this again. Number 1, create network traffic is an idea that I've got, that I think it would be nice if we could say every 5 minutes get the user to do something, or specify beforehand, and from a random template, get a user to click on a link, or get the user to click on an email. And certainly in pen testing, you use something like Responder or something, and grab hashes that way. So lots of areas in there. More Windows services. I need to add a lot more. Configurations and Windows tweaks, lots of them as well. More third-party applications, so we've got lots of them to do. And of course, then you start thinking, well, I could add in virtual routers as well. So we're going to add in the whole lot, add in a virtual router. Everybody says, oh, we haven't got a Linux server. We're going to add in a Linux server. So all these things are all certainly possible. The time to do it is going to take a while, but lots and lots of things in there. Combining the two of them, this was kind of an idea I had. I've got a module done in fourth year called pen testing, where the students, and traditionally, have been given some kind of target that they have to attack. And again, they've all got the same target. So I had the idea, let's combine all this, but not creating 4 different virtual machines, pre-create everything in there. So all the usernames, all the services, everything required for each student. So student 1 will have this set up, student 2 will have this set up, student 3 will have all these. And the way I'm doing it at the moment, you boot up the first VM, which is a web server, you choose your name from there, hit submit, and it sets up the environment for you individually. So it means that every single student has got a different web application, they've got different usernames and passwords and services, etc. Students are working on this currently. Some of you in front of me are working on it currently. It'll be really interesting to see the feedback that we'll get from this so that I can kind of change it. Again, more and more further work involved in here. I was thinking that we could have the same set of VMs, so you boot up the 4 VMs, but similar to Swag, you could say, I want to create a network with 200 users, 10% of them will crap passwords, 90% of them are good passwords, I want numerous services, and then hit go. So very, very similar front end, and it'll go away and generate it. And then, because I've injected the vulnerabilities, the solutions are there as well. So students, if they want to practice, there you go. Help yourself. I like the instant feedback for that, I think, is the real good learning point of this. So, summing up, I certainly find them useful utilities. I will be releasing them as soon as I get time to get my arse in gear and do it properly, but I certainly want to add in the Honours Projects stuff in, because there's a lot of good stuff in there. But future work galore. Any of you AppDeploy students in third year, Honours Projects galore, working on this. Anyway, thank you for listening. I rattled through it very quickly, but Martin's instructions that we all need to go to the pub, so.
One more presentation. Thank you. We've actually got about 25 minutes for questions, so have a few of them.
Whatever, yeah.
Do we have any questions? At least one from AppDeploy.
Half of them have seen it.
There they are, that's bad.
Have you considered procedurally generating web apps instead of using set templates?
Yes. Yes, I have. That's, again, another bit of future work that could possibly be done. And I am thinking, again, that would make a great Honours project for somebody doing that. One of the big issues, let me stop this a minute. One of the big issues, I know someone else at another university who's trying to do the same kind of thing, and they're trying to set up this fantastic framework. The thing is, I haven't seen any output from that. It doesn't work yet, and it's 2 years down the line, there's nothing there. So my idea was definitely, let's make it work, number one, and then let's get clever with it, number two. So, yeah, I totally agree, can be done, it would be excellent. Anyone wants to do an Honours project, I'd be delighted if you did that. But yeah, just a quick little look at this is essentially Swing running to begin with. It's only running a single virtual machine. I'll just kind of briefly show you. This is the syntax in here for the VM run command. See, it's a little bit awkward. You do VM run, revert to snapshot, VM run, start, enable shared folders, and you see underneath we've got add shared folder, set shared folder state, etc. Then underneath that is basically a kind of copy everything over and run. So the syntax is a little bit awkward, but keep going through. So from there, it's basically just kind of create network. The whole thing takes about 45 minutes to run, so I certainly don't want to show you the whole of that. But you can see it's run VMware. It will then restore the snapshot. Then the files are all copied over. So you can see all the files copied over. So that's all done from a single batch file, which has made my life pretty easy, must admit. But that's essentially the way it goes through. Sorry, I wanted to show you that as well, since I had plenty of time.
Are you concerned that the process may leave files behind that might make it easier to determine what happened as opposed to if you were manually?
It is most certainly an issue. Windows 2008 Server, for importing passwords, etc., has a secure string in there, which has made life a bit easier because my application doesn't import text passwords. It imports a string like this. And I'm hoping that I can it's going to make it difficult. You give hacking students a challenge like this, then they'll reverse engineer it right enough. So I've got an issue in there. But I'm trying as much as I can to try and hide that. And if I can think of a better idea, then I will. But it is difficult. However, I mean, would you really go through that process of doing a digital forensics job on a virtual machine? You'd be quicker actually doing a pen test, I think. Yeah, so.
Isn't there also the possibility that two students, working together could either their virtual machines or their web applications?
Yeah, definitely.
Find, vulnerabilities since they'd be different.
You're a hacking student, aren't you? Thinking all the ways that you can subvert. That's good. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that's a good thing. That's thinking outside the box. Yeah, you're definitely right. However, I still think a lot of these things, if students spent that length of time doing that, then you're quicker doing a pen test.
I thought the same. I'm a student, not hacking, but I'm doing CS, and you'll be surprised at the length people will go to subvert assignments.
Oh, you're right. You're right. But I still think you'd be quicker doing a pen test. Rather than doing a digital forensic job or doing something really incredibly clever, just go bloody do a pen test. Greg.
So, bearing in mind I'm not a faculty student, what kind of vulnerabilities would you say are in the current iteration of the role? And there's definitely no other.
So, I've got to tell you the answers to your coursework. Is that the only reason you're here? Jeez. I was expecting Aberdeen graduates to troll me because at least they've got jobs. Gary, you've got full right to troll me. You've got a job. They've got to rely on me at an exam board. Yeah.
Right, so the fact that you're using already made sites,
Yeah.
so how do you come across problems they've got sort of, like for example, an admin panel that's already broken?
Yeah.
Are you going to get rid of that and fixing it? Or
I'm going to get around to that fixing it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the very first one, it was really broken. The second one that you guys are using is less broken. There are probably other very simple ones in it. But the idea is that you're going to fix them. The current third years are going to have trouble next year because there's going to be a lot of them fixed. But hey, that's the way it goes. I mean, you need a test bed of a group of students to be able to progress the application. I think to take all these 8 applications and find all the vulnerabilities in them would take me quite a while because the code is pretty naff, really, really bad, but which is fine. Go on.
So, do you mark kind of based more on the methodology rather than the results?
No. Yeah, I'm marking the methodology and documentation.
Yeah, because obviously a lot of people could get really easy ones and then.
Yeah.
So do you mark just based on what you're
I'm marking based on the methodology, the method you've done, and your documentation. That's what I'm marking. But that's what I've always marked on. It's the procedure parts, whatever. You do the procedure as long as the documentation is correct. Yeah.
First of all, this is absolutely brilliant. I'm a professional tester and I think it's really good. I would have found this invaluable when I was actually learning it.
Yep.
Is this going to be just something you're going to keep as a project internally within AppDeploy?
No.
Or would you be looking, for example, for input from You know, for example, there's obviously lots of work to be done on it. And
Definitely. Number one, it'll be going on GitHub or similar. Number two, I've contacted 3 different companies, people, well, graduates from companies, who said, great, show us it, we'll give you suggestions and see if we can make it better. Because my number one objective is education, but number two, it'd be great for whatever company, NCC or whoever, to take it and use that for people who are just starting. If I can make it self-learning, you know, training system.
One of the things I thought about it immediately is I wanted to take the workshop and perhaps doing it at another B-Size conference,
Yeah.
and it would be on how to do a web application pen test.
Yeah.
Now something like this would be ideal because,
Yeah.
as you said, the existing ones don't really, you can't do an end-to-end on them because they're not really proper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want a copy, give me a shout and we'll send it down. It's a bit, in fact, I'll leave it on your laptop. There you go, it's your laptop, so I'll leave it there and play with it.
And just one other comment on it. At the moment, I understand is that all entirely PHP that all the websites are
All the websites are PHP, yeah, you're right, I could graduate onto more technologies.
The point of making that is that I've found when I've tested PHP, actually tend to have a series of a type of vulnerability that you don't see in others. So it would be useful to add other things like Java and .NET that...
Correct.
Right.
Future work! I keep on saying future work. I mean, if I can get 20 people to do on those projects next year on this, it would be fantastic. Because there are so many things could be done with it, you know?
Yeah.
But
I think it's really cool.
Good.
Do you consider setting one up with a fully hardened server? Basically, to see if you can get somebody finding 0-day vulnerability.
Yeah, I mean, that would be really nice. But again, I think that's really what Marion's going on about a company, because I want my students, they're base learning, you know, so a fully hardened VM is going to kill them. We've done this in the past, is that we've asked people out there, would you like our students to test your website? And the people with NAF websites will say no. The person whose website is pretty damn secure is the person that's going to say, oh yeah, I'll put it on a VM and give you it. So we'll hand it out to students, and there's no vulnerabilities in it, or tiny little vulnerabilities in it. And it's soul destroying for a student to start off with that they're not finding anything. So yeah, I can see this being taken on by a company and then doing that. Yeah, definitely. I'm hopeful once I release it, I'm hopeful people will go, well, you know, we'll adapt it and do our own thing with it. Because I don't think there are people who've got this idea out there, but I'm not seeing any results. You know, it's great having an idea and planning it for 3 years, but you know, I want something to work. So, okay.
Is that all questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Cheers.